Recently, I hit Grandmaster rank in Marvel Rivals, and a question that keeps popping up in my mind is, does Marvel Rivals need a role queue? For those of you who might not be familiar with what a role queue entails, this means locking designated spots for each character class on each team. This way we cannot have 4 people insta-lock a DPS and result in everyone arguing over who's going to play support. For the most standard form of role queue, this is the 2-2-2 class selection. 2 people are auto-locked for each character class, that being 2 tanks on each team, 2 DPS, and 2 support. With this form of role queue, it makes sure that everyone on the team has enough people in each category to then set the team up for success. It's essentially first come first serve with these character classes. Now, I already know there's a lot of you typing already that say that you guys are either going to love or hate this idea, especially with the Overwatch history of role queues, but let me take the time to explain to you the pros and cons of each role queue, and as well as wanting to introduce how I think a role queue would best serve Marvel Rivals. Really quickly though, please consider subscribing. It's the channel's goal to get to 10,000 subscribers, and I know that we can obviously get there because you guys are the best and have always continued to support me. Now back to the argument for role queue. The first very obvious pro about having a role queue is that you would actually have a full team and you would have 2 healers and not 5 DPS. Yes, this might seem very obvious, but after the crazy amount of hours and games that I've put into Marvel Rivals, I cannot tell you how many games that I've loaded into, and we have to beg someone to play healer, or at least beg someone to have 1 tank on the team. So the first pro of having a role queue would be the guarantee that you'd be getting a full team every single game. As well as getting different full team combos, you would have a better team. In my idea of a role queue, again, in my opinion, this would eliminate all the one tricks that you play with. A role queue would then force more players to learn the multiple different character classes, but also the multiple different characters in said classes. Has this ever happened to you where you load into a ranked game and you ask your 4th DPS, and you already know he's going to go negative, but you ask him, hey man, can you go play healer or play tank? And he says, oh, I only play DPS. Or, oh yeah, I'll play healer, but I only play Jeff, he's the only one that I know how to play. In my opinion, the idea of a role queue would quite literally force these one-trick players to get more familiar and comfortable with the different types of classes for characters, but also the different types of characters in said classes. Now, this would not be the last pro of having a role queue, but for the sake of the video not being too long, I'm only going to give one more, and that's that this pro would not have to have the role queue be the 2-2-2 role queue. Maybe there's a version of this role queue out there that can get voted on, like in the ranked system, where you can choose what type of queue you want to have, with the bare minimum always being 2 healers. The idea of this role queue that's going to force you to run 2-2-2, honestly, in my opinion, is not appealing at all, but having a flexible type of queue could be really interesting. Perhaps this idea you would have a bare minimum of 2 healers, but the rest are wide open. If you want to run 4 healers, that's fine. If you want to run 3 tanks or 4 DPS, that's fine. Whatever combination you want, you can absolutely do, as long as you have at least 2 healers in this role queue idea. I think that would be really interesting to see. Now, I truly do think that the few pros that I mentioned are going to be great arguments for implementing a role queue into Marvel Rivals, but I also have some negative talking points as well. Firstly, I think there would be a huge lack of customizable team comps and just an overall gaming experience in Marvel Rivals if there was a role queue. For example, right now in Ranked, the 3 healer comp is by far the strongest meta that I've seen. If a role queue is implemented, this would absolutely eliminate that comp, and yes, that might be a good thing for some of you out there, but it would also destroy the ability for endless types of team compositions that the community can come up with over time. Another con for getting into the idea of having a role queue would be eliminating the mid-game character switches. For example, Rocket has the team up with Bucky and Punisher, and maybe the enemy team has a great cloak and dagger that's really hard for you to kill and you just can't get to your back lines. With just Bucky and Punisher being your DPS, you might encourage your second tank to then swap to an Iron Man or a Spider-Man or an Iron Fist and go dive that healer. This last minute switch could ultimately give you guys the win and the upper hand in the match, but also maybe even have you win the game. If there was a role queue, I genuinely think this switch would never be possible and it would be locked down into a role queue and you might not win the game because of that. Now I hear what you're saying. What if you guys have a trash DPS? If your random picks Spider-Man because he swears that he's Peter Parker, and he does it before you, and you being a Lord Spider-Man or a Lord DPS, that might force you into being a tank or a healer, to which then you're better obviously being that Lord DPS. This right away is a negative impact and a negative hindrance for your team if you have a bad person queue and just lock in that DPS spot. This will then not allow you guys to have a third DPS, and the problems are endless with that. I completely understand. This problem with the role queue would instantly eliminate the customizable team comps that we just talked about, but also lock in skilled players in lanes that they're best not suited for. Everyone knows that if you have a Spider-Man on your team, he's either going to be actually Spider-Man, he's going to be Tobey Maguire, and is going to be an amazing Lord Spider-Man, or he's going to be terrible and go 3 and 38. So imagine that you have a role queue system implemented and you're watching your Lord Spider-Man not be able to be Spider-Man, and you're going to have to put him over at healer or tank where he might actually just be a one trick. And yeah, he could learn to be different characters, that's great. But also, everyone wants that Lord Spider-Man on their team that's going to sway the tide of the battle. So having a role queue implemented might be locking him out of playing that character in that DPS slot if someone's being greedy and not wanting to give it up. Now, I know that the idea of a role queue is something that the Marvel Rivals devs have outright said that they do not want to do. But from a community standpoint, what do you guys think? I'm honestly split on this idea, whereas most of my friends that I play with, they think that the game absolutely needs a role queue. If I were to implement a role queue and just to flip a coin and say, okay, I'm in charge, we're doing a role queue, there's a few ways that I think I might do it. Right away, I think pubs absolutely do not need a role queue. If you want to run 6 healers for the memes, I think you should go for it. You should be able to do whatever you want as far as I'm concerned for pubs. But ranked is truly different. Like I said at the beginning of the video, I just hit Grandmaster. Yeah, subtle flex, whatever. It's not a huge deal. But I do think that somewhat warrants that I slightly do somewhat know what I'm talking about when it comes to playing ranked Marvel Rivals. Am I the best? No, but I do have some experience. Being in Diamond and above lobbies, there's obviously that banning phase. I think it should be the same way with a role queue. I started this season at Bronze and worked my way all the way up to where I'm at now in Grandmaster, and I just gotta tell you, the teammates that I get in the Gold and Plat lobbies are by far the worst teammates I've had, even compared to the ones in Bronze or Silver. And I do think that the win or loss is entirely up to the matchmaking that you get with those hit or miss Gold to Plat teammates. The Gold to Plat lobbies are absolutely hell, simply put. But I believe that from Bronze to Plat, you should have a role queue that is auto-locked with that 2-2-2 system. This way you learn how to play that 2-2-2 system, and this entails that the lower ranks are exposed to the new characters, which would then get them away from that one trick idea that I spoke about earlier. Then and only then, once you get to Diamond, as well as having that banning phase, you should have the ability to run whatever team comp you want. If you want to do 3 healers, I say you go for it. I do think there is a huge uptick and increase in just overall intelligence in the random teammates that I get once I got into Diamond. Are they perfect? Am I perfect? Absolutely not. But I think the same way that you earn yourself that banning system, the game rewards you at a higher level of being more quote-unquote intelligent and having that banning phase. I think you should also unlock the ability to not have a role queue once you get to Diamond as well. I truly do think this is the best way you could implement a role queue if this were to ever happen in the ranked format. If you have a role queue at the higher ranks, I know that this would absolutely kill the game. If you're having Grandmaster, One Above All, Eternity, Celestial matches, and you're having a role queue, I think that would just entirely mess up the amazing character switches that you can do mid-game, as well as the team comps as well. Another option to do a role queue, I think it might be some sort of voting system similar to the banning phase, but I honestly don't have really any argument or even a strong argument for this, so I'm not going to go down that path. Ultimately though, what do you guys think? Do you think that Marvel Rivals even needs a role queue? If so, how would you do it? If you think the game definitely does need one or definitely does not need one, let me know, because I love to hear you guys' thoughts and feedback, and obviously with this one, I am genuinely curious on what you guys think. Also, I love reading your guys' comments. It's absolutely my favorite thing about making these types of videos, so genuinely, I want to hear your feedback on this one. Truly though, thank you guys so much for watching and supporting the channel and supporting the video as well. If you haven't already, please consider liking and subscribing. It just helps the channel grow. It helps me know that you guys are liking the videos that I'm making, and I'll obviously keep making more because of it. Let me know your thoughts down below, and I will see you guys in the next video. Take care. Bye.